Have you ever done a small act of kindness, not knowing it would echo louder than anything you imagined? Sometimes a single moment of compassion sets off a chain of events no one could predict. That's exactly what happened when a teenager offered help to a drenched, stranded biker on a stormy evening. What seemed like a simple good deed turned into a scene straight out of a movie the next day. Roaring engines, leather jackets, and a message that respect runs deeper than appearances. Before we begin, comment where you're watching from. We love seeing how far these stories travel. This story isn't just about motorcycles or rebellion. It's about loyalty, unexpected brotherhood, and how one gesture changed everything. The sky cracked open with thunder as heavy rain lashed against the small town's quiet streets. Most people stayed indoors, curled up with warm drinks or glued to their screens. But on the edge of town, near an old gas station long out of service, someone was out there, soaked, stranded, and trying to flag down help. It wasn't the kind of night anyone would want to be caught in, especially not on a motorcycle. The roads were slick, the wind was howling, and the dark made everything feel like a scene from a thriller. At that moment, a teenager named Kyle was on his way home from a part-time job. Hoodie soaked through when he noticed the figure struggling with a motorcycle on the roadside. Most would keep walking, eyes down, pretending not to see, but Kyle stopped. Maybe it was instinct, maybe it was something deeper, but that decision would be the beginning of something unforgettable. The rainstorm wasn't just weather that night, it became the setting for a story that would be retold for years in that town. Kyle wasn't known for taking risks. He was quiet, kept his head down at school, and avoided confrontation whenever possible. But something about the stranded biker pulled at him. The man was massive, drenched, with tattoos crawling up his neck and rings glinting on every knuckle. His motorcycle looked heavy and expensive, now leaning dangerously on its kickstand while the biker tried to adjust something near the engine. The biker didn't ask for help. He didn't say a word, but the frustration in his eyes said plenty. Instead of walking away, Kyle approached with caution. "You need a hand?" he asked, unsure if it was bravery or foolishness that made him speak. The biker turned slowly, eyes narrowing, but then something unexpected happened. He nodded. No threats, no attitude, just a silent acknowledgement. That moment, short and awkward, sparked a silent understanding. In a world that often judged by appearances, Kyle saw someone in need, not just a biker. That was the first thread in a bond neither of them realized was forming. The biker's name wasn't shared that night. He barely spoke, only gesturing and occasionally mumbling under his breath while trying to fix a snapped clutch cable. His leather jacket was soaked, his boots caked in mud, and the cold rain made every movement stiffer. Kyle helped hold a flashlight, offered his hoodie as a cover for the exposed wires, and asked no questions. The biker didn't give much in return, just a grunt here and there and a glance that said, "You're all right, kid." It was clear the man wasn't just some drifter. The customized Harley, the detailed patches, the way he moved, it all screamed experience. Yet there he was, vulnerable in the rain, accepting help from a kid he didn't know. That roadside scene was something rare. Two very different people, generations apart, connected by a shared humanity in the middle of a storm. Kyle had no idea that behind the gruff silence was a man with powerful ties and a loyalty few could understand. After half an hour in the rain, Kyle realized the man was freezing. His house wasn't far, just a few blocks through side streets. "You can warm up at my place, just till this lets up," he offered. It wasn't said with fear or hesitation, just quiet kindness. The biker studied him for a moment, as if trying to judge whether the offer was genuine. Eventually, he gave a single nod. No thanks, no smile, just acceptance. Kyle led the way home, heart pounding but steady. Back home, Kyle's parents were working late, the house quiet except for the hum of the heater. Kyle handed the biker a towel, made some instant coffee, and pointed him to the couch. For the first time, the biker spoke a full sentence. "You didn't have to do this." Kyle just shrugged. "You look like you needed it." That moment, more than any other, left an imprint. In a world that often judged by appearances, this gesture, simple, honest, wouldn't be forgotten. The warmth of the house melted some of the tension. The biker sipped his coffee slowly, steam rising around his weathered face. He didn't smile, didn't relax fully, but his shoulders dropped a little. Kyle didn't press for conversation. Instead, he turned on a small space heater and sat across the room scrolling through his phone, pretending things were normal. It was a quiet night filled with unspoken appreciation. Neither of them realized how rare that kind of silence was. comfortable, not awkward. As the storm continued outside, the biker eventually asked Kyle's name. "Thanks, Kyle," he said with a nod. Still no name offered in return, but somehow that didn't matter. A few hours passed, the rain started to die down, and the biker stood. "I owe you," he said simply. Kyle walked him to the door, unsure what he meant or if he'd ever see him again. But the air felt different, as if something had shifted in the universe, waiting to return the favor. Just before midnight, the biker left. He didn't give his name, didn't ask for anything else. He just gave Kyle one last look, then fired up the now functional bike with a roar that shook the windows. The sound echoed into the distance as he disappeared into the misty streets. Kyle stood on the porch, unsure what had just happened. It all felt surreal, like part of a story he hadn't finished reading yet. He stayed there for a while, staring at the rain-drenched road, wondering if any of it had meaning. Inside, the towel still hung damp, and the half-drunk coffee sat cooling on the table. Kyle cleaned up, thinking about the man's eyes. Not threatening, not even thankful, just aware. It wasn't until he went to bed that the weight of the night really hit him. He'd helped someone most people would fear, and he didn't even get a name. But deep down, Kyle knew that it wasn't the end of it. Something about the biker's silence spoke volumes, like a promise unspoken. By the next morning, rumors started floating through the neighborhood. Someone had seen a biker leaving Kyle's house. Another claimed they heard loud engines late at night. Small towns have a way of turning small things into big rumors. Kyle kept quiet. He didn't owe anyone an explanation, and he wasn't even sure how to explain it if he tried. Most people wouldn't understand offering your home to a total stranger, let alone one covered in leather and mystery. Still, the curiosity spread. Some classmates asked odd questions. A few adults gave Kyle strange looks. But Kyle stayed steady. He didn't feel like he had done anything wrong. If anything, he felt proud, like he'd followed some deeper truth, one that didn't need explaining. The real story hadn't even started yet, but the air was already buzzing with a sense of something unusual coming. And then, just as the rumors began to fade, something happened that no one could have predicted. The next morning began like any other, until the sound came. It started as a distant rumble, like thunder returning, but it wasn't weather that time. It was louder, deeper, with a rhythm that made the windows vibrate. Kyle stepped out onto the porch and froze. Down the main road, one by one, motorcycles rolled in. Glinting chrome, roaring pipes, leather jackets. Not two or three, dozens, at least 40 riders moving together in a tight, disciplined formation, and they were coming straight toward his house. Neighbors peeked out from curtains, some ran inside. The sight was intimidating, surreal, like a scene from a movie. Kyle stood still, hands shaking just a little, not out of fear but disbelief. What could this possibly mean? Why here? Why him? But deep inside, he knew it had to be connected to the night before. The biker had said, "I owe you." And this, whatever this was, felt like a return on that debt, louder and larger than anything Kyle imagined. The riders didn't just arrive, they performed. The formation circled the block in perfect unison. Chrome flashing in the morning sun, engines revving in harmony. They parked in a half moon around Kyle's front yard, dismounted with the grace of soldiers. It was a silent display of presence and power, but not aggression. The lead rider, older, scarred and solemn, stepped forward and removed his helmet. It was him, the biker from the night before. Only now he wasn't alone. He was part of something much bigger. Kyle stepped forward, unsure what to say. Before he could speak, the man raised his hand. "You helped one of us," he said loud enough for all to hear. The statement was simple, yet it sent a chill down everyone's spine. The others nodded silently behind him, eyes locked on Kyle, not with suspicion, but with respect. What had begun in the rain was now being repaid in steel, leather, and loyalty. For a few surreal minutes, Kyle's house became the most guarded place in town. The Hells Angels didn't block roads or cause chaos. They simply stood there, silent and still, like statues made of thunder and history. Some neighbors filmed from behind curtains. Others locked their doors. But inside the eye of the storm stood Kyle, utterly calm because somehow he understood what was happening. This wasn't a warning, it was a salute. The leader stepped forward and handed Kyle a leather patch. Small, embroidered, but unmistakable. "This means you earned respect." No one else spoke. No one needed to. Kyle looked down at the patch, then up at the men who came just to show honor. The moment burned into his memory. He had offered warmth to a stranger. In return, he was given something few ever received from this group: recognition. And with that, the engine started again, one by one, as the thunder rolled back down the road. At first, Kyle's parents were overwhelmed with fear. They had returned home just minutes after the bikers left, only to find their front lawn marked with tire streaks and neighbors whispering nervously. Kyle explained everything about the rain, the biker, the help he offered. First, they didn't believe him, but once they saw the small leather patch and heard the sincerity in his voice, their worry turned into quiet awe. What kind of man brings dozens of riders to honor a teenager? Word spread quickly across town. Social media blew up with grainy videos of the bikes, the formation, and Kyle standing among them like something out of a legend.